Here you can see I open my web editor and I create a HTML file index.html, and I open this file in my browser using live server extension, and I'm going to open my console in my browser. In this video we are going to read a text file using fetch method, and you can see in my directory I create a folder named content, and inside this content folder I already create a text file, and in this text file I type some dummy text. So I want to read this text file in our HTML page. For this I am going to type script tag inside our body tag, and now I am going to use our method fetch, and inside the curly braces we need to provide the path of our text file content/text.txt. Whenever this file send data in response, to retrieve this data we need to use then function. Then inside the round braces I'm going to create another function. We receive our response in this function, so I'm going to create a variable named response. You can take any name for this variable, but the fact is we work on ES6 version, so we can use arrow function. So I'm going to convert this function into an arrow function. First I remove function keyword, then I use arrow sign. Inside the curly braces, whatever response we get from our server, we just return. But first I want to print in our console what we get from our server. Console.log inside the round braces response. And if I save this file, you can see in my console we get a lot of things from our server as response: URL, body, header, status code, and we already know if our server's response is successful, then our status code would be 200. These are not very useful information. We just want to access our main content. Our file return text, so we need to use another method to retrieve the text, response.text. And if I save this file, you can see in my console our promise state fulfilled, and our promise result is our text content. So our then function return a promise, and now I'm going to return the text because our then function return a promise. And now I'm going to create another then function after this then function. So I'm going to copy the function and I'm going to call this function right behind on this function, and whatever our first then function return, to store this value I'm going to create another variable in our new then function, data. And now I'm going to print this data in our console, console.log inside the round braces data. And if I save this file, now you can see in my console it print our exact content, what we want to access from our server. Not only that, we can print in our browser document.write inside the round braces data. And if I save this file, you can see in my browser it print the file data in our browser, and we can make our code more smaller. Basically we use arrow function, so we don't need to write return statement for this. So I'm going to remove it and make it one-liner, and we are going to follow the similar step for our second then function. And if I save this file, you can see the same result. If we use fetch method in our arrow function, then just we need to write one line of code to retrieve data from the server. Here we retrieve normal text from our server. Now I want to retrieve JSON data from server. For this I'm going to use fake data. So I open a new tab, fake JSON data, and I'm going to use this website, JSON placeholder. You can use any website, but most of the time I like to use this website. And if I scroll down little bit, and here you can see how we can use fake JSON data with fetch API. And if you scroll down little bit, you can see some JSON resource, and this time I'm going to access user data. And if I click on it, you can see 10 users data. You can see their name, their ID, their email, their addresses. It's a fake data, so I'm going to use this data. You can see in my browser this JSON data is well organized because I use JSON viewer extension. Maybe in your browser it is not well prettified, so I suggest you download this extension. And I'm going to copy this URL, and I'm going to replace our local file path with this URL. So now we're trying to access a JSON file, so we need to use response.json method, and I want to print our JSON file in my console. console.log inside the parenthesis data. And if I save this file, you can see in my console, we get 10 record as an object. And if I open it, you can see the same information: name, username, email, user address, user phone number, user website, etc. So using Face API, we can retrieve JSON data. And if you work with PHP file, similarly it provides JSON data. And as I told you earlier, when we run fetch method, it's not mean it's always return success. It's also can return error. If file not available in server, sometimes server not response. To resolve this kind of problem, we use catch method. So I'm going to use .catch. And we already learned about catch in our previous videos. Inside the round braces, I'm going to take a variable named error. And I'm going to use arrow function. And in my console, I'm going to print our error. If I set this file, you can see in my console there is no error because our request worked successfully. But if I change the URL path and I'm going to remove U from user, now there is no file name ACRS in that server. And if I save this file, you can see there is an error. We don't get any proper message, but just it show 404 means file not found. And if I show you the network section, and you can see the file name ACRS status 404 type fetch, and also you can see size and response time. And now I want to print this data in our document, means in our browser. For this, we need to use for in loop. So I'm going to remove this console.log section and I type curly brace. Inside the curly brace, and I'm going to use for in loop. For inside the round braces, var a in data, then inside the round braces, document.write a. What do you think? Is it going to print all the document at once? No. Let's run the code. You can see it print 10 numbers, 0 to 9. And once again, I'm going to show you the console.log data. And if I run this code, you can see in my console, oops, I did some silly mistake. We need to write this console.log section outside the for loop. And if I run this code, you can see it's written an object. But inside the object, there are 10 more objects. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we need to print their values to get proper result. To retrieve this value, we are going to use a variable value. A means object key. So inside the round braces, I'm going to type data. And inside the square braces, I'm going to pass the key variable. And if I set this file, you can see in my browser, it's print object, object, object. Because there are more objects inside this object. We cannot print object like this. We need to define exact object key. Suppose I want to print object name. So inside the document.write function, I'm going to use template string method. Inside the backticks, $sign and curly brace. And I'm going to pass data and square braces. And then I use br tag for break the line. First I declare our index. Then we need to declare our exact key. So I type .name. And if I set this file, now you can see in my browser all the username. And if you want to print user email with their name, I'm going to type --. And I'm going to duplicate this code. And I replace name with their email. And if I save this file, now you can see in my browser, it print username and their email also. You can see in my console. Similarly, you can use all the key to retrieve particular data. And you can see inside the object 0, there is another object named address. And now you decide to print user city from the address. In that case, first you need to use address keyword, .address. And once again, you need to use dot to specify the exact query. And I only want to retrieve city from the address bar. So I type .city. And if I save this file, now you can see in my browser, it print username with their city. So in that way, we can print data in a table. If you notice, here we retrieve JSON data from online server. And we also retrieve JSON data from local file. Let me show you the example. If I show you my current working directory, you can see there is a folder named content. And inside the content folder, I already created a JSON file named student.json. And inside this JSON file, I already insert some data, student name, student age, and their city. And now I want to retrieve this local data using fetch API. So first I'm going to change our file path, content / our file name, student.json. So first I'm going to stop this for loop. So I'm going to comment out this because their key is different. First I want to show the data in our console. If I save this file, you can see in my console, we receive 2 data. And you can see our student details. And our keys are name, age, and city. And if you want to show the data using for loop, and once again I'm going to enable this for loop. And I don't need to address section, so I'm going to remove it. And I just want to print student name and their city. And if I save this file, you can see the result in our browser. It prints student name and their city. And if you want to show dynamic error message on your browser, you can. Inside the catch method, I'm going to type document.write can't fetch data. And I'm going to change our file path. I'm going to remove s from student. And if I save the file, you can see in my browser it prints our catch function message can't fetch data. And if I show you my console, you can see it's print 404, means file not found. So I hope now you understand how it's work. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how we can insert data in live server using fetch API. Thanks for watching this video.